Okay, recording again.
Okay, we're back. We're back.
After the phone call interruption.
Yep. So, where did we leave off?
Well, we were trying to determine a way to integrate defensive play into your game, to allow people to pursue a defensive strategy and still possibly win, to prevent people who are just going to be aggressive, belligerent players from rushing the board and taking the game.
Yes. And we had an idea to disallow that, make it so that you can keep a player shut down as long as you have a piece on top of them, and that I like a lot. I think I might actually use that anyway.
Well, what I was actually saying was that make it so that, okay, traditionally when you move on top of a person's piece, you lock them down, right?
Right.
What I was saying was if you land on someone else's space, they can lock you down.
Oh.
And that would favor defensive play. So holding a bunch of your pieces near the beginning of the board would give you an opportunity to lock other people down and to hold them in place for the entire run for as long as you want to. But since you can only have 4 pieces on the board, locking someone else down would cost you one of your pieces for each individual piece you wanted to lock down. So let's say you stack 3 of your pieces in one place near the beginning to make it hard for anyone to really move without landing on one of your spaces. Then you can defensively lock someone down because they're likely to land on your space. And you can hold them there for as long as you want. But the cost is that you can't move that piece, and that you have to hold several of your pieces actually near the beginning of the board in order to make that possible.
Yeah, that would work.
And that seems like it would reward a defensive strategy, but there's still a downside to playing that defensively. Since you have to use some of your pieces in order to keep them from being too aggressive.
Yeah, exactly. You would still want to be able to progress yourself.
Right, and it would create a scenario where if someone laid their pieces really intelligently, they could lock down other players while still moving across the board.
Okay. I only would have one question how you thought this out. Say we had 4 players and you have a hold down here. If another player lands on top here, what happens?
Okay, so you've already locked someone down and another player lands on that space. Boy, there's 3 possibilities, right? The first possibility is that the piece that was there first gets to continue to lock down every piece that lands on that space. I think that's a bad idea.
Same
That's
here.
a little too
I think that
makes rewarding defensive play.
Too much.
Yeah.
The other obvious choice is 1 for 1. You can hold one piece in that position as long as you hold your one piece in that position. Okay. And if you move 2 pieces on to that position, you could then hold a second piece there.
Yeah.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Another possibility I considered was if you've got 3 or 4 players, actually making it so the person who's held there can hold someone else there. If they want
so
to.
it becomes a chain.
That's what I was asking about.
So the second player who's stuck there against his will could still make something of his shit luck by holding the third player when he comes to that position.
Right. Okay.
But then how do you decide who releases the hold? Like if the first one releases the hold, is everybody released? Or?
Well, I'd say if the first one releases his hold, then it's up to the second player to release the person he's holding.
Oh, okay.
But he
doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to.
And that would be reverse anyway. So the guy on the bottom would actually be the one that would have to start the chain.
Start the release, yeah. Yeah, see, that would make sense.
And that would be okay.
I have another question. GM, can he have more than 4 pieces on the board at once?
The GM? What do you mean?
This is a game with a GM in it.
Right, but the GM has no pieces on the board except for the NPCs, but the NPCs can't have more than 4 on the board, just like players.
Okay.
Oh.
But the GM could theoretically have more than 4 then if he has more than 1 NPC on the board.
Right.
Okay. But each NPC is limited to 4 pieces on the board.
Right. And for NPCs, I was thinking about starting this way.
Okay, so NPCs do in fact move in the opposite direction.
NPCs would go the opposite direction. Players would all go one way, though.
Now, since this board... What about a boss monster scenario or a boss encounter scenario, wouldn't it make more sense to give the GM some leeway there so that maybe the boss is 6 pieces on the board so he gets his specials faster?
That is a possibility. I was thinking about having him start with a predetermined number of specials.
Oh, okay.
So you could actually use this special if it was some sort of desperation attack you wanted him to have or something.
Right.
Or so that he'll always bring the hate.
Kind of like a JRPG where it highlights the boss's special abilities, kind of.
Yeah, so that you'll always see it. But in this case, it's more there so that it's actually a fucking challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, so the idea then would be that the monsters, or the bosses, almost have a stat box that says this is what their special attack is, this is how many times they can use it.
Yeah.
Per game or per session or per encounter.
Yeah.
As opposed to having them move their pieces along the board like everyone else.
Yeah, and they would still be able to have the pieces.
See, but I would almost think that it'd be better to have them move just like the players do, because then the players could work together to try to lock the boss's pieces down to get him, prevent him from getting his special off, and then the strategy of the fight also translates to board strategy.
Right.
So you'd be trying, everyone might work together to do a defensive strategy in-game, like let's say they've all taken up defensive positions around the boss in-world.
Right.
And then out of world, they could simulate that by having all of the boss's pieces placed in defensive holds, or by placing all of their pieces together in a line so that the boss has to land his pieces on them and get held.
Yeah, that
And he couldn't get his specials
makes
off.
sense in the flow of thing, except for one problem. The players themselves can save up special attacks before they go into it because everything keeps carrying over.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
the
that's
boss
right.
should
You
be
spend the
able to-
chips to do it,
That's
which is why I
that's
have
right,
the
so the
predetermined
boss
number
will
of
have-
attacks. Because the
Yeah.
players themselves will likely start saving up strategy-wise.
Right,
before
they're
they
gonna
get
to
the
lay it
boss.
down.
And then
Oh,
the
yeah.
boss will be at a disadvantage.
Right.
That's true.
Now, what I was thinking is that when a boss is encountered, though, any chips on the board get reset.
Oh,
But they
okay.
keep the chips at home.
What you could also do is say, okay, well the boss has already charged this many specials, but he's going to have to play you on the board for any additional ones.
Any
he wants.
additional-
Exactly.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Now I'm not even sure if this is a game that would be played, with bosses necessarily. I'm not sure what the structure of the sessions would be,
There could be.
but
There could be. Not necessarily, but there could be.
right.
So, because this is a pretty flexible system. You could do
Right.
pretty much whatever you wanted. So, I believe that covers that. Right?
Yeah,
Yep.
I think that covers
Okay,
the
so
game.
we covered. There is only one session I was wanting to encourage, and it's just as something for certain players. This wouldn't have to be for everybody necessarily. But this concerns the doubling cube that is used.
Right.
Normally this would get used when one player is leading. He offers the cube up. This doubles the worth of the game. Now I really like the sound of that because it encourages players to gamble with what they're doing.
Right.
And I was calling this confidence because they would, obviously whoever's offering the cube would have confidence. Normally if the cube is offered up, if the opposing player doesn't accept, they instantly lose the game. That doesn't work here. Instantly losing the battle because you don't accept the gamble is insane.
Yeah.
So that was one of the problems. The other problem was, what do you gamble with?
Right.
Maybe if you gamble with your with what you have in home, maybe. So you're basically gambling with your specials.
That is a possibility.
Or possibly even with your advancement, if you're about at 3 or whatever.
Well, how
Yeah, I
would it work
wouldn't
in
want
backgammon? Is this if you're playing backgammon for money or chips or something? Or
You could also do it as part of a series of matches. Say you're going to a 7-game match,
Okay.
and it's match 1. You can offer it up once to make it worth 2 games worth in the series,
Okay. I
and then
see.
they can re-offer it up later for making it worth 4 games. In the series.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
And that it's either actual gambling or competition to get an ending
Right.
quicker.
Oh, I see.
Because you're so confident you can fucking do it.
Oh, I see.
And that just really attracted me. But it might
How
have
do
to
you
get cut.
pull it off and play.
Now you play, yeah.
Yeah, I think at
So
the
what
end
the
of the day,
doubling cube effectively does is it doubles the speed at which the game takes place, right?
not necessarily doubles the speed at which the game takes place, but
It doubles the speed,
speed
at
of
which
the-
movement
of a series.
takes place.
of the series of games. In this sense, it would be more like,
But I mean, what does the doubling cube actually do once it's been accepted?
oh, it actually just, it's basically exactly a gambling thing. It just
It
doubles what the worth is. So if you were going to bet money, say,
Okay.
put down $20 on the game,
Okay, so
and then you offer it up once, it becomes worth $40.
okay,
And then it gets re-offered later.
it becomes
Becomes $80.
$80. Okay, so it only the doubling cube then has no effect on the actual flow of play.
Correct.
It just changes the value of play.
Correct.
Mm.
Why is it a cube with numbers on it then?
That's the multiplier.
Oh, so you could make the game 4 times or...
It
The
4,
value.
8, then it goes to 16, 32, 64.
Oh, okay, so it just rolls up like a spin counter then.
Yeah, more or less.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Oh, I
it's
see.
2
Oh, so
times
it's really
the
just a
original value,
counter.
8 times
Yeah, it's
the
just a
original,
counter.
or 2,
Oh,
4,
okay.
8.
It's just a thing that says, hey, I'm whipping out my dick. I think I'm going to beat the living crap out of you.
Oh, I see.
Here. You going to
Well,
take this?
why doesn't it double damage dealt or double whatever the in-game
Yeah.
situation is?
Maybe it doubles the result of the conflict or something.
Right.
It doubles the stakes in the conflict.
Right.
But what would be the stakes?
Well, it would depend. Like
Well,
if
in
you're...
a combat situation, it'd be health. So if
Yeah.
the doubling cube comes out, everyone does double damage.
Okay.
I don't know what it would be in a social situation necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess it'd get a
it
little
would really
more
depend on
abstract.
what, assuming that the game is structured in such a way that you always have to declare what the end result of this conflict is,
Mhm.
it would, multiply that result for the winner.
Okay, so... But would that really be gambling if it was double damage? Because all you would then be doing is doubling the damage. What would be in it after the conflict that you would gain?
Well, what you would gain is, or what the gambling element would be, you could actually keep the, take it or lose scenario where it's, okay, I'm offering you the double and cube. Damage is going to be doubled in this match, or in this battle,
Conflict.
whatever you want to
Yeah,
call it.
it
In
would
this
be
conflict, I guess in each case the word would be conflict. So damage will be doubled in this conflict, or you can refuse to take the cube and, surrender or withdraw or abandon the conflict. In
So it's
some
kind of
way.
like a way to escalate the conflict. Sort of.
Yeah.
In a way to, I'm trying to think of how you would justify that in game.
See, what I was thinking of, I wasn't necessarily thinking double damage, though that would be really nice as the mid-game stakes.
Mm-hmm.
Afterward, though, for each time that it's doubled, each player would have to offer something in their inventory of worth.
Okay. Well, what's the inventory?
I was thinking of, I was thinking of putting in somewhat magical items, not like plus 10 or whatever,
Oh,
but just simple like plus
players
1s,
have an
plus 2s.
actual inventory.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, an
with
actual
actual
inventory.
magical
Yeah.
items in it.
Yeah, I was thinking like credits or gold or
So
whatever.
if you were offered the doubling cube, that's like saying, okay, you need to put something from your inventory on the line.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And if you don't, you have to withdraw from
Draw
the
from
conflict.
conflict.
So maybe like if you fail on your doubling cube thing or whatever, then maybe your sword breaks or something.
Well, the other guy gets it.
The other guy
Oh,
gets
the
it.
other
That's
guy would
exactly
get it.
what
Oh,
happens.
okay.
The other guy would get it, and you
Okay.
get something of theirs if you succeed. You give it up if you're leading.
Oh, okay.
I've made it, personally I thought the rule would be fair if you could only give it up twice during the conflict per character, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Once when they fall to 75% health, the second time at 50% health.
Right.
So that they can make a comeback and actually win the conflict.
Oh, okay.
That's the whole
That
point.
makes sense. So this is almost like loot rights then.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, this is, or increased loot rights depending on how
Yeah.
loose, strict you want to be with it.
Right.
Yeah.
This is like,
Yeah, I guess there could be loot at the beginning of each scenario. I think it would help if each conflict was predated by some kind of statement about what's at stake in this conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would, I mean, as it is, I figured the way we're doing this, the way we've been playing anyway, we've been telling people what the HP of these monsters are anyway. Why not actually put in something to make it stakeful here, you know?
Right.
They're going to know anyway, eventually.
That's true.
I mean, unintentionally for the most part,
Right.
we're doing it, but...
But I mean, making players make a statement like, you know, I want to engage in conflict X in order to get Y.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like I
So
want to
that-
get this out of the conflict.
Right, so that the stakes of the conflict are clearly defined at the beginning, so that
Okay,
would make
yeah.
what
So,
you're
like-
gambling on clearer.
Okay, so in this case would be you would be gambling on a physical object, but in conversational or mental conflict, it would be information. Is that what you're leaning towards?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's say information. Let's say you want to know the whereabouts of the king's daughter who has been kidnapped by orcs, and you've captured one of the orcs, and you're about to pull a Jack Bauer on him. You know, you're getting the pliers out. You got him strapped in the chair,
Yeah.
and so so you would say, I'm going to try to torture this orc in order to get information. And then the conflict is torturing the orc, and the stakes are the information.
And how detailed it gets depends on how far you get up the doubling cube.
Yeah, maybe you could.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
that's
maybe.
a good idea,
So
actually.
then, if you offer you torture the orc down to 75%. Of course, hit points wouldn't always be an issue here.
Yeah, it'd be
But-
more like a conflict bar sort of thing. But you know what I mean.
But you reach a point where you can offer the orc the doubling cube, and maybe if he rejects it, he has to give you the information you asked for.
Right.
If he accepts it, he has to give you the information. If
he accepts it and
loses, excuse me, he has to give you that information plus you almost pose a new question. You say,
Right.
okay, you can tell me where the king's daughter is now. You can tell me where the princess is now, and this can be over. Or I can keep torturing you, and you can find out. You can end up telling me where the princess is anyway.
Yeah.
Plus, you have to tell me, where your tribal leader is stationed, so that I can,
And where's the dragon?
do an ambush on him later.
Right.
If he knows where the dragon's hold is, yeah.
Yeah.
So that I can ambush your king later.
Right.
And so then for the orc, that's a shitty situation because he has to choose between giving up one piece of precious information that's going to screw him, or giving up a piece of precious information that's going to screw him, and a piece of information that could destroy his society.
Yeah, like bringing out the doubling cube in the case of the interrogation is like bringing out the torture toys, or in the
Right.
case of
And
in the
it
case
could,
of an actual combat, it'd be like putting poison on your weapon.
right.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
And it could escalate even more then, since you can offer it multiple
The
times. So
time,
you could
right.
later ask him, okay, you haven't told me where the princess is yet, and your king is already on the line. Well, if you don't tell me where the princess is and where your king is located, next question I'm going to ask is, where does your family live?
Yeah.
And then he'd have to choose at that
Yeah.
point, do I want to keep playing this losing backgammon game and maybe get my wife and
My
kids
kids
killed?
fucked up.
Or do I want to give them the information that could topple my society and give our prisoner back to the
Yeah.
Yeah.
enemy?
Do I think I can come back from this, or am I fucked? That's basically the gist of this, how it always works out.
Yeah.
But
That could actually be really cool.
that's what I'm saying. That's why I really, really wanted this in there,
Yeah.
in some form. But I think that pretty much sums up everything. If anybody has any questions or anything from here, or something I missed maybe.
Oh, character death.
Yes, character death. Did miss that. Character death is determined this way. When you hit 0, you're just unconscious.
Health?
Yeah,
Okay.
health. 0 health. You don't necessarily need magic to be brought up from an unconscious state.
Right.
You can have like an endurance stabilized check to bring yourself back.
So very much like D&D.
Yeah, that part is done like D&D, and there's even negative health for death, and I figured that was the best way to handle it in this case.
Right. So how far down does your health have to go before you're dead?
I was thinking -5, but once you get higher into the health, maybe that might be a concern. So, as a secondary option, possibly -5 plus your brute modifier.
Is it GURPS that does negative percents of health?
I'm not
Yeah, that's
sure.
a possibility too.
Maybe.
What game is it that
I
does?
don't know.
Like if you're 15% below 0, or if you're 20% below 0, 20% of your hit points below 0.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
That may actually be a D&D variant. I'm
Oh,
not
maybe.
Sure.
I do like
I
it.
really don't know. That sounds kind of neat, though.
That would be better in this case,
Yeah.
since we're starting somewhat high, but maybe like 15% below it. Death. Anything otherwise, you're just unconscious, stabilized.
So, to provide kind of a summary here, what the game does do is conflict resolution. What the game doesn't do is task resolution. So the game is all about, well, first of all, creating a setting of some kind, cooperative setting creation,
Right.
and then finding conflicts or creating conflicts within that setting. Conflicts particularly between players and NPCs or players and other players.
Right.
And then resolving those conflicts through backgammon.
Right.
Okay.
And of course, there is always the option for actual role playing and whatnot in between.
Right. And, well, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, there can be conversational conflicts as it is, so
And so,
one would take some role playing to get those started.
But I have a question though on task resolution. What if the rope is sentient?
But then the sentient rope would be in conflict with you, wouldn't it?
There you
Yeah,
go.
it's a conflict, yeah, because it doesn't want to be grabbed.
Right. I mean, I could
Yeah.
possibly see something like a check if you've been
Yeah,
poisoned
it
or
doesn't want to be
something.
grabbed. So yeah, what if it's a sentient rope with a history of sexual abuse?
Abuse.
Oh, here we go.
Well, somebody's getting ass raped.
Yeah.
But I mean,
That's the
that
sound
The
of
it
it.
rope
doesn't want
has
to
a
be
history
grabbed.
of abuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, the rope is like, boy, is he trying
It's
to
like,
touch
don't
me?
touch me,
Is
yeah.
he putting his hands around me?
Yeah.
Man, I don't feel comfortable with him climbing me.
So yeah, I think that pretty much gets that out of the way. Like I said, there's room for checks and stuff because you do have each one covering like a strength and endurance. Endurance would definitely be more of a check stat then, right? So you do have room for that.
That's true.
But if you don't want that in there, you don't have to have it in there.
You mean stats?
Stat checks for like if you got poisoned or if you
right.
survived a long fall. Like,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
if you're gonna fall a long distance, you're taking something.
I mean, I would think that
Great, so-
being poisoned would be a conflict with whoever's trying to poison you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not like the poison is sentient though. The poison is stabilized as the poison. It can't be anything more than that once it's in your bloodstream.
That's true.
But then the conflict could become, well, do you die or not? I mean, I'm not sure.
But that wouldn't be a conflict with another player
No,
or
not with
NPC.
another.
That would be a conflict.
I'm
with
not
the
sure
player.
It would be
exactly
a
how the
check.
conflict task dichotomy. I'm not sure. That's 4G stuff. So I'm not sure how they exactly draw that line.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's all I got.
Roger. I don't think I have any questions. I'm trying to think. Let me look over the rules a little bit.
Yeah. Feel free to look. Not everything I've said is typed out on that sheet, but
So big general question.
okay.
What were you trying to accomplish with this? What was missing from other games? What was it, or at least what was the impetus here to create this game?
That's the weird thing. I don't start my creation of anything, creative skills, as a goal toward people. I try and create a game that is centered around an object, and I try to build around that object. So this is more of my personality coming out in the game than it is anything else.
So
which is
it's almost
weird.
fetish game development.
Sorta.
You find a fetish object,
Yeah.
and then you fixate on it, and then you shape the game. You insert your personality into that fetish object, and the game grows from there.
Yeah,
That's
although I do have to say the terraforming thing was aimed at you guys.
Yeah, I could see shades of Rudy there.
Yeah, that was aimed at you guys. I thought it would be really nice to have an impetus for the players to play. If they feel that they've been invested in this from the beginning, there's more reason to role play it out.
There's more stake.
It might not always be the case. There's always jackasses somewhere, though.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yep. Well, that is Harken.
That is
Harken!
Harken!
Exclamation point.
Exclamation.
Yes.
Sure.
What time is this?
It's 10:05.
10:05. It's night still early.
Yeah, it is.
I believe that is end of session.
Yeah, end of session.
End of session. Well, do we want to transition on to something else?
We could. Maybe we should stop the tape
Thing
while we talk
make
about
a transition.
I saw a rat in here somewhere too. Oh, a mouse.
Is this the outro